Hi, I am Bhanu Tatak, and today I'm here to speak about a very important subject, which is the planned mega hydropower project in the lower Yarlung Sangpo River, Tibet Autonomous Region in China, which is a huge topic of debate because that project itself, which is considered of 60 megawatt, has is having a huge geopolitical impact on the downstream of Arunachal Pradesh, India, which is in Siang River. So we are trying to this is a research topic presentation which has been compiled by the following data sources. Through these data sources, so these are some Chinese news media data and official policy documents, domestic academic monographs, international mainstream media coverage, and some research outputs on transboundary river governance. So this is not the published data, but then it is under process to be published. But before that, I realized this is very important to put it out in the public about what's really happening in China and what's happening in Siang. So my report, as I said, is on the planned mega hydropower project that is happening in China, right? And then the research purpose is to understand the planning parameters, strategic positioning, and construction layout, and most importantly, the downstream hydrological repercussions and cross-border controversies surrounding the mega hydropower project in Yarlung Sangpo, which is in the Tibet Autonomous Region. So I have done a comparative analysis, and with the help of these data sources that I have collected through various, international organization and alliances, as I have mentioned before. So this report, I will not try to oversimplify it. I will just put it out as it is. It may be technically, a bit off the algorithm of social media, meaning it may not be fully comprehensible to everybody, but it is still very, very important to be out there as technically sound it can be as a ongoing research, right? So this report compiles comprehensive information on 5 cascade mega power projects approved in December 2024, sited at the Great Bend of the Yarlung Sangpo River in Medok Country, Ningxi Prefecture of the Tibetan Autonomous Region. So बेसिकली ये एक प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में है जो अभी चाइना में हो रहा है, यारलुंग सांगपो नदी में एट द ग्रेट बेंड, एंड जो तिब्बत ऑटोनोमस रीजन के अंदर में आता है. एंड द मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव्स it serves to the country, to China, is that it serves as China's dual carbon strategic objective. Matlab basically they are doing this project namely for carbon emissions, reductions of carbon emissions, by 2030, and attaining carbon neutrality by 2060. This is 2025, 26 right now. 2060 तक उनका carbon neutrality achieve करने का target है by the international standards, of course, which I'm sure India is also at the race of doing so. But interestingly, we'll find a lot more details about this project. The initiative has been incorporated into the 14th 5-year plan for economic and social development and the long-range objectives through the year 2035. So jo ye, like in India, there is this Niti Ayog, right, which was the planning commission. We have this 5-year plans उसी तरह चाइना में this whole the जो 60 megawatt project that we are talking about is incorporated in their 14-year plan for economic and social development. 2035 का plan है अभी से लेके तब तक, right? So which means it was initiated in December 2024. Okay, so the project, as we all know, which is being completely hyped by the Indian media, is that it's 60 gigawatt project, right? Which means 60,000 megawatt project. And it is estimated to have an annual power output of 300 billion kilowatt hours, right? The total project investment has exceeded 1 trillion Chinese currency, which is estimated to be 137 billion USD, dollars. 137 billion dollars का project है, which is happening in China. So, the construction timeline is 10 to 17 years. Joint implementation has been entrusted to Construction Corporation of China and the Tibetan Autonomous Regional People's Government. So it is a combined plant project. And then further more technical, facts about this project. Why I feel it's very important to be out there is because we cannot not know what is happening out there. We cannot just go by what's there in the mainstream media. Yeah, there is a 60,000 megawatt dam upstream, right? But what kind of a dam it is, So the fundamental, technical and institutional parameters of the mega hydropower projects, right? So that is our next discussion. So the core project specifications, तो जहाँ पे वो बन रहा है, geographical location is lower reaches of the Yarlung Sangpo, Himalayan foothill जो Medok country है, in Google you see Medok country, this is where it's happening, it's the Great Bend, right? It's in Tibet. So the overall, which is the Ningxing prefecture, right? Overall layout is 5 sequentially constructed cascade hydropower projects. So there are not just one, but then 5 cascade projects, right? Which is like one after another. मतलब 5 dams है वहाँ पे, which is a total output installed capacity of 60 gigawatt, which is 60,000 megawatt, right? Like I said, annual power output is expected to be 300 billion kilowatt hours, and of course the estimation has been given as 137 USD to build this project, right? Like जो investment है. And minimum 10 years, it may take 17 years to build this dam. And primary development technology is river course optimization coupled with long distance tunnel water diversion. So it's going to be a tunnel water diversion, and many reliable sources and eminent academicians have mentioned that this is a run of the river project. Okay, it's not going to be a gravity dam, it's not going to be some few hundred or few thousand meters high standing dam. It's a run of the river through the tunnel, tunnel water diversion river dam, hydropower project, which is considerably negligible in context to considering the downstream impacts, or getting into some kind of geopolitical conflict with India, or to be more specific, with Siang in the Adi area, right, of Arunachal Pradesh. Alright, so I have mentioned already the power corporation which is behind this, right? Authorized implementing entities. Again, they are Power Construction Corporation of China in joint collaboration with Tibet Autonomous Regional People's Government, right? And like I said before, it's a run-of-the-river hydropower generation, devoid of long-duration, large-volume water storage. So it's not going to be a water storage project. It's going to be a tunnel, it's going to be a project that has long-distance tunnel water diversion, which is the run-of-the-river project, considered to be safer than the gravity one, right? And then so there are very two interesting things about this project is that two core categories of risk and factual disputes are delineated herein. The first one being the project faces inherent domestic geological and ecological uncertainties. Basically, it is not known that how and where the people will be resettled in the autonomous region of Tibet. मतलब वो लोग का resettlement का there is no proper disclosed relocation or resettlement plan, right? So this is a huge point of contention in the project among the locals, and due to Tibet's fragile alpine, the alpine geomorphology, which is very, very prone to landslides and seismic activities and flash floods, the whole, the project itself, the viability of the project's long-term viability is in question, right? And the second is cross-border hydrological contentions have been raised by sub-national authorities in India's Arunachal and Assam state, right? So Chinese territory, especially when it comes to border sharing between Arunachal and China, nearly 7 to 35% of Brahmaputra's river total basin discharge comes from Chinese territory, right? With the bulk of downstream water supply deriving from the monsoon precipitation south of the Himalayas and tributaries within Indian territory. Meaning to say, the जो ये सियांग है, ब्रह्मपुत्र है, it flows from China. The whole the जो upstream runoff जो originate होता है from China only accounts to 7 to 35%. It is also not just this they document. There is also this has been documented very well by the Indian government itself. So I'm not just quoting what are the available international sources or what's available in the Chinese media or what's out there, but it's also being quoted from the Indian government's website. Okay, so and basically जो वहाँ से पानी जो ब्रह्मपुत्र बन गया, सियांग बन गया, it's not only 7 to 35% चाइना से कंट्रीब्यूट करता है, एंड रेस्ट आर बेसिकली जो हमारा हिमालय ये रीजन में बारिश होता है, ऑल द स्मॉल रिवर्स ट्रिब्यूटरीज विद इन इंडियन टेरिटरी दैट comprises what Siang is, what Brahmaputra is, So this is again very important. Scholarly research and official diplomatic statements confirm the project's run-of-the-river designs precludes large-scale water impoundment, meaning that this is a small this is a run-of-the-river design. It's confirmed by various experts, hydrological data, and also by academicians who are doing close monitoring of the project. Concurrently, India has expedited the development of its large-scale hydropower scheme in the Siang River. So, of course, it's out there that people in Siang are opposed to them, which is the Siang multipurpose SUMP Siang Upper Multipurpose Project. इसको oppose करते हैं, but that project is kind of being projected as a downstream, measure, as a lower riparian advantage, taking lower riparian advantage, or even being kind of, put across as a geopolitical tool, right? कि ये बहुत ज़रूरी है, and it's a huge issue out there in the media. मतलब everybody is like, damn, बन रहा है ऊपर तो हमको भी बनाना है. This is like a huge paradox, which is what I'm trying to disclose today. कि ऐसा नहीं है, that it is not required कि यहाँ वहाँ डैम बन रहा है तो यहाँ भी बनना है डैम. And then this is strategic context and endowment of hydropower resources. So okay, this is more not related to the subject particularly, but then okay. Like I mentioned before, the dam in China is basically to support the local. Basically, it's to kind of meet that zero carbon electricity criteria, right? And to meet that by the next till the next till 2035, till 2060. And also to support local industrial chains and encompassing logistics, transportation, construction materials. Despite all the issues that is being faced by the locals there as well. So like I said, those issues are unresolved project uncertainties requiring continuous multiple critical, technical and social indicators remain undisclosed to the public, forming latent risk vectors warranting sustained follow-up assessment. So quantified scale of resident relocation in standardized resettlement compensation framework is missing. Basically वहाँ पे compensation जो मिलना है या जो relocate होना है, जो resettlement होना है, उसका कुछ public disclosement नहीं है, and this is creating like uncertainties in the project, right? And now उसका एक full spectrum quantitative EIA report है, which is because Tibet is an alpine plateau with a fragile ecosystem, right? Which is prone to flash floods, prone to it's a seismic zone area. उसका जो quantitative EIA report है, this is not transparently disclosed, right? So that is also again a cause of panic, of course, because अगर आप कहीं में बना रहा है इतना बड़ा dam and you don't know what will be the EIA, what is the environmental impact assessment of the dam, and you don't know how public will be relocated, rehabilitated, then there will certainly be more uncertainty among the public about the project, right? So long-term ecological restorations ka blueprints implementation needs to be followed up, because Tibet is the roof of the world, right? Like what is known as the roof of the world, ki usko bolta hai ki this is it, right? Like water source of Asia and everything. अगर वो डैम बन गया उसका लॉन्ग टर्म इम्पैक्ट कैसा होगा, and even after the removal of the dam what will be the restoration implementation, right? Like those blueprints needs to be followed up. So insufficient public discourse basically, right? Like there is no public discourse around the whole project, right? So coming to this is like the last part of the research, and this is actually the most important part, is the multi-source empirical analysis of downstream transboundary hydrological impacts, right? Basically downstream में क्या होगा, that is the whole point of contention in Arunachal itself, right? कि ऊपर बना रहा है तो हमको भी बनाना है ना, तो यही सब लोग बोल रहे हैं. Especially I feel like there is a huge PR game happening here, कि मतलब whatever people are protesting on ground, like research reports like this, international journals say, या pressure on the Chinese government, or to say the militarization of Siang, etc. Nothing is being shown in the national media properly, right? But there is this there is this. And of course it's wrong. You cannot militarize people. You cannot point a gun on a subject and say, you have to accept the dam, right? So this is what is happening in Xi'an. And then in uska jo media hai, reporting hai, that is kind of like censored, right? Which is very odd. And on top of that, local se leke not international, local to national, even like random influencers on YouTube, they are like कि भाई यहाँ पे डैम बन रहा है ऊपर में चाइना में, भी हमको भी बनाना है, right? So that is kind of like a PR strategy, the whole thing. That's why I have to speak about this, and this report will be out there. I am making a PPT of a big report, and then this will be circulated, like the PPT will be uploaded on YouTube as well. So concern voiced by Indian subnational administrative authorities, right? So this is from the transboundary, from the Indian perspective. The Reuters, it's a very good international journal, like media, Reuters, dispatches documented public statements issued by Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, the Indian state sharing a border with Tibet, alleging the proposed hydro dam could curtail 80% of river runoff traversing Arunachal Pradesh while exacerbating inundation hazards for downstream Assam state. The Chief Minister of Assam similarly articulated vigilance over potential upstream water regulation disrupting local water utilization regimes. So यहाँ पे हमारा CM सर ने बोला है कि 80% पानी कट जाएगा, while the data out there says there's only 7 to 35% water, the coming in from China to Arunachal, and basically 65 to even let's say 93% of the water that is in Siang and Brahmaputra comes from the monsoon of the Himalayas, जो precipitation rate high है यहाँ का, बारिश ज़्यादा होता है, and the tributaries of Siang basically makes what is Siang a huge flowing steady river, right? So it is contradictory to what CM sir is saying. So that's why I feel like it's very important to put this data out there. There should be no misinformation, and if there is some kind of project happening, it should be with proper free, prior and informed consent of the public, right? And the stakeholders, not just the public, ऐसा नहीं है कि just people who are going to get compensated. The whole tribe of Arunachal, right? The downstream of Assam, in fact even the downstream of Bangladesh, right, has to be taken into consideration for this project, for the Siang project basically, which was originally 10,000, now abhi wo ban gaya 11,000, now there is like 12,200, suddenly it becomes 11,500, right? So subsequently to China's official project announcement in late 2024, India's Ministry of Water Resource, Jal Shakti Ministry revived the dormant Siang project 2017 का. तो Chief Minister of Arunachal said 80% पानी ले जाएगा, Siang को control करेगा, and Assam का Chief Minister भी short ऐसे type से बोला है. But then later Himanta Biswa Sarma is like it will not affect downstream. China में जो बन रहा है वो हमको यहाँ affect नहीं करेगा, and it was a public statement he made last year. I would like to share the documents also. I am not an expert on video editing so far, so I will just keep it very simple for the first video, and the remaining follow-up videos will have more documentations, like there will be more, but this was very urgent, okay? Again, the point number 3.2, right? Empirical hydrological data refuting exaggerated downstream impact claims. So multiple source research outputs furnish consistent empirical data substantiating the limited hydrological influence exerted by China's upstream dam projects, in Brahmaputra basin, right? Discharge. Basically, there are many independent, international, or even say academic and government reports which says empirical data, right? Which means research, based on research जो data है अभी, hydrological influence जो China का upstream dam जो downstream में करेगा वो नहीं करेगा बोल के, there is enough data out there, right? So let's go slowly on it. Basin coverage versus runoff contribution, right? That's the first point. 50% of Brahmaputra watershed lies within Chinese territorial boundaries. Nevertheless, upstream inflow accounts for merely 7 to 35% of the river's aggregate discharge. The Journal of Southwest Minzu University adopting a median reference range of 15 to 35%, meaning जो हमारा यहाँ से नदी का अकाउंट जो वाटर जो इंडिया के अंदर फ्लो होता है, देर इज बेयरली 7 to 35%, विच इज ऑल्सो नॉट लाइक, this is not like accurately either. It could be if it's 7% or it's 35% or it's 25 or 20, right? It's somewhere between 7 to 35%, not less than 7%, not exceeding 35%, right? And this is a proper data out there by the Southwest Minzu University, who has adopted the median, मतलब कि बीच का reference point 15 to 35% they are considering, जो चाइना से अरुणाचल में फ्लो करता है पानी, right? So there is the first basin coverage data, and then dominant runoff sources. The preponderant volume of Brahmaputra water originates from monsoon precipitation south of the Himalayan mountain range and tributary catchment situation within Indian territory rather than upstream inflow from Tibet. Basically what it's saying, जो the dominant runoff source है, जो वॉल्यूम है जो ब्रह्मपुत्र पानी में, जो सियांग पानी का जो वॉल्यूम है, इट्स फ्रॉम द मॉनसून प्रेसिपिटेशन, मतलब कि जितना बारिश देता है यहाँ पे, बहुत बारिश देता है हम लोग हिमालयन माउंटेन रेंज में, उसी से पानी बनता है. दैट वाटर जो इतना बारिश देता है, उसी से ही पानी का जो वॉल्यूम है सियांग का और ब्रह्मपुत्र का वो बनता है, ना कि वो चाइना या तिब्बत से आता है. ओके, एंड वो जो ऑलरेडी इट्स बीन क्लियर दैट इट्स द मीडियन रेंज इज 15 to 35% दैट फ्लोज फ्रॉम चाइना, ओके, टू अरुणाचल. I hope that is clear, because I feel like this has been like one of the most contentious point in this whole report, that which is trying to argue the paid PR that is out there. And cross-border runoff contrast metrics, right? Transboundary, this is the third point. Transboundary river flow at China-India line of actual control registers between 2,000 to 3,000 cubic meters per second, surging markedly to 15,000 to 20,000 cubic meters per second upon entering Assam, India. This stark volumetric disparity validates that Indian domestic tributaries are localized, precipitation constitute the primary drivers of downstream water availability. So, okay, this is again repetitive but more informative with additional data कि जो LAC है इंडिया चाइना बॉर्डर में अरुणाचल में, उसमें जो the पानी का फ्लो है दैट इज 2,000 to 3,000 cubic meters per second, लेकिन वो पानी अगर असम तक पहुंचते पहुंचते उसका 15,000 to 20,000 cubic meter per second बन जाता है till it reaches Assam. Meaning from the LAC till Assam there is this additional flow of 13,000 cubic meters per second. जो LAC में 2,000 to 3,000 cubic meter per second होता है, जो पानी का जो रिवर फ्लो है, वो असम तक पहुंचते पहुंचते 15 to 20,000 cubic meters हो जाता है. तो बीच का ये जो 13,000 cubic meters per second फ्लो है, वो विदिन अरुणाचल या बिटवीन अरुणाचल एंड असम बॉर्डर, फ्रॉम द precipitation रेट, जितना बारिश होता है उससे वो पानी फॉर्म होता है, वो वॉल्यूम को बढ़ाता है पानी का, नॉट कि ऊपर से पानी आ रहा है. Okay, so some sources I'm going to quote is Sayanakshu Modak, a specialist in Sino-Indian transboundary water relations at the University of Arizona. उनका data है ये, and through their affirmations I'm speaking. And there's another one, Ruth Gamble, right, who is a renowned environmental historian at ऑस्ट्रेलियाज लाट्रोप यूनिवर्सिटी, जिसने बार बार बताया है कि जो चाइना में डैम बन रहा है दैट इज अ रन ऑफ द रिवर आर्किटेक्चर प्रिक्लूड्स लार्ज स्केल वाटर इम्पाउंडमेंट, मतलब कि इट वोंट बी होल्डिंग अ लार्ज स्केल लाइक पानी को होल्ड नहीं करेगा, बट इट्स गोइंग टू बी अ टनल बेस्ड रन ऑफ द रिवर प्रोजेक्ट, राइट. सो मतलब कि दिस विल नॉट इम्पैक्ट डाउनस्ट्रीम वाटर scarcity or catastrophic flooding is negligible, meaning कि it is not वैलिड आर्ग्यूमेंट कि वो सब होगा यहाँ पे डाउनस्ट्रीम में, ठीक है. So, even the Chief Minister of Assam has acknowledged the river's multi-source water supply structure, meaning हिमंता विश्व शर्मा ने भी एक्सेप्ट किया है कि जो सियांग है, जो ब्रह्मपुत्र है, उसका नदी, वो नदी ऐसा नहीं है कि पूरा चाइना से आता है, तिब्बत से आता है. चाइना से वो ओनली 15 to 13%, 7 to 35% आता है, एज पर वेरियस सोर्सेज. ओके, अलग अलग डेटा के हिसाब से, यूनिवर्सिटी रिपोर्ट्स हो गया या हाइड्रोलॉजिकल डाटा शेयरिंग रिपोर्ट्स हो गया. बट जो मेन सोर्स ऑफ वाटर है, लाइक आई एक्सप्लेन द क्यूबिक मीटर्स पर सेकेंड वाला एनालॉजी के हिसाब से, इट्स मोस्टली द हिमालयन सबटेरेन दैट इज रेनिंग. प्रेसिपिटेशन रेट्स बारिश का वजह से हो रहा है. ये मेन जो पानी का फ्लो होता है, मतलब द ट्रिब्यूटरीज आर कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू दिस रिवर, राइट. इट्स नॉट चाइना बेसिकली. तो so these are some additional information. I wanted to keep it short, but I will try to wrap it up because I think I've crossed the important part, but I still want to talk about China's official diplomatic position. मतलब जो चाइना का डिप्लोमेटिक स्टैंड है, वो लोग क्या बोल रहा है चाइना वो डैम के बारे में, एंड ट्रांस बाउंड्री रिवर कॉर्पोरेशन मैकेनिज्म्स क्या क्या एग्जिस्ट करता है अभी, राइट. So diplomatic stand. Mao Ning is spokesperson of Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right? This happened last time. हम इसका बहुत follow up कर रहा था ये news को. Mao Ning जो spokesperson है China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs का, उसने reform किया है कि China is principled and responsible governance opposed to transboundary water discourses, emphasizing and run-of-the-river operation model diverts water to power generation before fully returning flow to the natural river channel, right, with no adverse repercussion to the downstream hydrological conditions. Basically, Mao Ning has given a public statement, right, जो spokesperson है वहाँ का Ministry of Foreign Affairs का, उसने ये बोला है कि जो रन ऑफ द रिवर सिस्टम वो लोग बना रहा है पानी ना, वो जो क्या होगा कि दैट विल डाइवर्ट द पानी को डाइवर्ट करेगा पावर जनरेशन से, इसके बाद वो फ्लो को वापस वो नेचुरल नदी में छोड़ेगा, राइट. So that is there, but despite all whatever is happening in China, we have now confirmed data. हम लोग के पास ये data is confirmed that we do not depend. हमारा पानी is not dependent on China. हम लोग चाइना में डिपेंड नहीं करता है, ठीक है. And then second point being, Chinese central authorities, they have time and again वो लोग बार बार बोल रहे हैं कि हम लोग जो कोई मतलब ये किसी रिपेरियन नेबरिंग स्टेट्स का लेजिटिमेट इंटरेस्ट को हम लोग केयर करता है, राइट. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये डैम जो मतलब इंडिया को हार्म करने के लिए बना रहा है. इट इज जस्ट देयर ओन कार्बन न्यूट्रलिटी गोल्स, राइट. And of course for their industries and things like that, right, like it generates electricity output which is going to be 300 billion gigawatt, right, like 300 billion gigawatt annually, as I mentioned before. And then so we'll talk about this memorandum of understanding. Is very important, institutionalized bilateral cooperation, right. So this is a very very important point. China has executed a MOU है चाइना और इंडिया गवर्नमेंट का बीच में between sharing the hydrological data of Brahmaputra river during flood seasons, especially बारिश का दिन में वो लोग जो डाटा शेयर करने का एक MOU है दोनों का बीच में, ठीक है. Let's keep it very simple to that. I don't want to over exaggerate this point. And in January 2025, China and India convened special consultations on transboundary river affairs and reached consensus to reconvene expert-level working group meetings and reinstate collaborative hydrological data sharing frameworks applicable to relevant river basins, right? So basically 2025 में January 2025 में ये न्यूज़ भी हम फॉलो किया था. इसमें अजित डोवाल, right, which is Shri Ajit Doval is the National Security Advisory of India, right? He was present in this meeting. If you look it up, जनवरी 2025 को हुआ था जब ये MOU रिनोवेशन का बात चल रहा था बिटवीन इंडिया एंड चाइना. दैट्स व्हेन आई थिंक ये माओ निंग वाला वो भी निकला था, व्हेन शी हैड गिवन अ स्टेटमेंट, राइट, सेइंग कि हम लोग यहाँ में अपना डैम बना रहा है, नीचे में कुछ नुकसान नहीं होगा, राइट. शी एश्योर्ड अस एंड देयर आर मेनी फॉलो अप चाइनीज बहुत सारा फॉलो अप डिप्लोमेटिक वो भी निकला था, रिपीटेडली पब्लिक एश्योरेंस पब्लिक को प्लेज किया था कि नीचे का प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा इंडिया को, राइट? सो तो अभी दिस इज अगेन इम्पोर्टेंट लॉन्ग टर्म डाउनस्ट्रीम agricultural and ecological co-benefits. India faces severe per capita water resource scarcity, with agricultural consumption accounting to over 90% of nation's total water withdrawal. High temperature and seasonal droughts frequently precipitate marked agricultural yield losses. Stabilized upstream runoff regulation delivered by hydropower projects can safeguard dry season irrigation demand for the downstream farmland, enhancing. So basically, it's about if there is a proper coordination अगर होता है तो there is a possibility कि it will benefit the downstream long term downstream agriculture को भी, अगर पानी को ऊपर में अगर steady वेज में कंट्रोल किया जा सकता है, right? So I think this is kind of not fully developed, this part, but we can talk more about it later. But rest of the things I really wanted to highlight, so I have exceeded half an hour time, but I still want to highlight these things. एक international water law research published by Journal of Tsinghua University ऐसा बोला है, ये जो यूनिवर्सिटी का पब्लिश्ड रिपोर्ट है, ये China's consistent compliance with international normative frameworks in advancing Yarlung Sangpo hydropower development, comprehensive pre and post construction environmental impact assessments, deliberate avoidance of zones characterized by high geological disaster incidents, and the establishments of standardized ecological compensation and long-term restoration government systems. Okay, so these are, I'm not saying ये किया है नहीं किया है, but these are these are some research published which talks about these things that I've so far mentioned, right? कि वहाँ पे basically क्या हो रहा है. So I don't think it's very important in the context of understanding what's happening in Arunachal, but whosoever needed to know that has to know that, right? All operations arrangement conform to widely recognized customary international law governing transboundary. Okay, this is fine. Yeah. So there are few recommendations that it has been compiled in this research, which I feel like it's still important. मतलब ऊपर से हम बोल देगा अभी के लिए, which will be detailed in the next video, hopefully, if there is one. Internal project specific risk, right? Geological, structural safety hazards. So that is very important, being the Tibetan Plateau being a seismic belt, steep loose slope formations and frequent landslides and episodic flash floods. वहाँ पे undisclosed detailed geological reformation and mitigation planning may endanger long-term structural risk to cascade dam cluster. मतलब कि डैम टूटने का चांस है या फिर इवन क्लस्टर होने का चांस है, right? Because it's a highly seismic zone, बहुत ज़्यादा लैंडस्लाइड होता है वहाँ पे, बहुत ज़्यादा flash floods होता है, right? Where the project is being proposed, not Siang Dam, the Chinese dam, right? And then ecological restoration uncertainties. जो तिब्बत का अल्पाइन प्लेट्यूज है ना, वो जो मतलब बहुत लो environmental carrying capacity and fragility है, it's very very fragile in nature, and अगर उसका अच्छा से डाटा उसको long term उसका क्या impact पड़ेगा ये project का अच्छे से नहीं होता है, you never know that we can lose that a water tower of Asia forever, right? That is a long term impact which is not clear yet of the project, and border regional social stability risk. Absent public data enumerating the scale of population relocation and its standardized compensation mechanism introduces indeterminacies concerning social governance stability. Okay, fine. This is again cross-border geopolitics risk, right? This is okay, very very important. I think यही हो रहा है in Siang is the political sensationalization risk within India, right? तो जो sub-national state administrations है may continue to amplify narratives of upstream hydrological risk for domestic political leverage, accelerating India's parallel hydropower development agenda on the Brahmaputra and intensifying regional competition over transboundary water resources. So exactly this is what is happening, right? This is what the whole research is trying to highlight कि यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है कि oh, there is a project happening, then we have to enter. यहाँ पे नीचे में भी हमको वो project बनाना है, right? So that's what the Indian government is doing. It's a political sensationalized risk. It's not real risk. सच में हो नहीं रहा है उसको politics है ये. This is politics of hydropower, you know, where इसको एक एजेंडा बना रहा है कि ऊपर में डैम बन रहा है, हमको यहाँ हम लोग खत्म होने वाला है, हमको भी बनाना है, राइट? वेयर इन देयर आर सब्सटेंशियल डेटा बाय एक्सपर्ट्स, हाइड्रोलॉजिकल एक्सपर्ट्स, एकेडमिशियंस, प्रोफेसर्स, जो बोल रहा है कि ऊपर का प्रोजेक्ट विल नॉट अफेक्ट अस बिकॉज व्हाट्स हैपनिंग अपस्ट्रीम इज नॉट इवन, जो पानी ऊपर से नीचे आता है इट्स बेयरली इवन 15 to 35%, राइट? एंड द जो सियांग का जो पानी वॉल्यूम है इट्स क्रिएटेड बाय विदिन इंडियन टेरिटरी बाय द सियांग ट्रिब्यूटरीज, you know, in Siang. On top of which there is a huge protest, there is a huge generational protest by the Adi people, our people, against this dam. So there is a whole mechanism behind this to push this agenda to, you know, like I said, cross-border geopolitical risk, which is political sensationalization of the project, right? Inconsistent messaging between India's central government and sub-national authorities is generating periodical institutional communication frictions. So अभी जो इंडिया और चाइना तो एक MOU है हाइड्रोलॉजिकल डाटा शेयरिंग का, राइट? बट इफ अगर उसमें प्रॉपर कम्युनिकेशन नहीं होता है फ्रॉम ईदर साइड, या इंडिया के साइड से या चाइना के साइड से, देन इज गोइंग टू क्रिएट प्रॉपर प्रॉब्लम्स इन द फ्यूचर, नो? तो ओवरलुकिंग एवरीथिंग, देयर आर फ्यू रिकमेंडेशंस दैट this report, you know, which has been compiled through various reports, the compilation of many reports which I have quoted before. So we have cut down to couple of recommendations. जैसे कि there should be we should continuously collect full official environmental impact, geological safety, right, and resettlement assessment reports upon their public release. Construction, second is track the construction process of India's SUMP hydropower project and alternative water development schemes, systematically mapping India's long-term strategic layout for transparent water resource exploration. Periodically archive minutes of bilateral transboundary river consultation, assess the practical implementation efficacies of hydrological data sharing agreements, summarizing sustainable institutional. Basically what we need to know is कितना coordination हो सकता है between India and China, and if there is a possibility that we should be encouraging, you know, which I highly believe we should be encouraged, the two countries, you know, the two great nations of Asia, China and India, should come together, form bilateral relations in context to these dams, upstreams and downstream, right? There should be a proper monitoring mechanism for geological disaster incidents in the plateau construction corridor. Basically, if these are very seismic, highly seismic zones, that needs to be properly monitored. And so we have come to the last part of the research of this paper, is the conclusion, right? Basically, empirical hydrological data sets and the projects run of the river technical design jointly demonstrate that cross-border security sensationalized by Indian national administration and subsequently overstated. Basically, जो यहाँ में politicize किया जा रहा है, that there is a dam happening upstream, that we need to make one downstream, it's a huge political sensationalization, you know, it's not real. सच नहीं है वो, right? And then इसका डाटा को, इस डेटा को हम लोग पब्लिक में अच्छे से बताना है, ताकि you know, we are not risking people's lives, basically. लोगों का जिंदगी के साथ मजाक नहीं होना चाहिए, right? We are going to lose a huge heritage of the Adi tribe. We are going to lose our villages, you know, people's lives are at risk. Many of us have been, you know, मतलब बहुत केसेस हैं हम लोग के ऊपर में. पर्सनली आई हैव मेनी केसेस अगेंस्ट मी सेइंग दैट आई एम इंसाइटिंग दीज प्रोजेक्ट्स, कि मतलब हम जो ये प्रोजेक्ट्स को मैं, यू नो, लाइक हम बंद करवा रहा है, आई एम लीडिंग प्रोटेस्ट, यू नो, पब्लिक को हम उकसा रहा है, थिंग्स लाइक दैट, राइट? So not just me, my comrades, my friends, my family members, my folks in the village, everybody is under huge pressure. Gaon have been suspended, terminated for taking a stand. हम लोग केस किया है ये issue पे, and we have been paramilitarized basically, right? Like there is like military outside, like in the villages, people were being coerced, and my final thing to say is that despite all this, we strongly oppose the dam, and then I, on a personal level, want to explore small hydro initiatives that the government is willing to, that the government is willing to substantiate, right? Like in the hydropower discourse. ऐसा नहीं है कि you should just go ahead with, these huge dams, just bulldozing people's right, and let's not forget the points that I've mentioned regarding what's happening in China, and उसका downstream क्या वो होगा, downstream में वो जो politicize किया जा रहा है कि downstream, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. So this paper is an attempt कि वो चीज़ को हम लोग थोड़ा discuss कर पाए. So I know it's a bit lengthy, but I will try to kind of keep it concise in the next one, and thank you so much.